Ruthlessly scientific. 1,400 videos. Nootropics, TRT, biohacking, energy, health. 2 globally shipped nootropic stacks. This is Cortex Labs. I'm your host, Ryan Michael Ballo.
Ladies and gentle sirs, hope you're doing great. Happy Saturday. My brain is pressing me to show you guys something as we start this stream and get people in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a window capture. I'm going to take myself down. Hold on a second. Why is it capturing the stream? Yeah, that's what it should be capturing right there. Hold on a sec, guys. There we go. No? Doesn't want to capture it? What's that about? Weird. I don't know why it wouldn't capture that. Hold on a sec, guys. Technical difficulty. It's my window capture, and we're doing that. Bing. That should work. Does that work? All right, sweet. So check this out, guys. Now, HCG, okay, for guys on TRTs, somewhat of a controversial topic, I guess. There's guys that believe you don't have to be on it. There's guys that absolutely are very clear on the TRT and the testosterone subreddits that with it makes the experience so much better. And without it, really, TRT is giving them anabolic effects, but no androgenic effects, meaning sexual effects. Dr. Saya, okay, I think his name is Justin Saya, is the lead MD at Defy Medical. Okay, if you don't know what Defy Medical is, they're one of the most popular TRT clinics in America. I think they're based out of Florida. I use Defy. I've been with Defy for a long time. I don't intend to change from Defy. They have many different products. They even have Pregnal HCG, which is very cool. He highlighted a study that shows us this graph right here. And the main point that I want to make now, in light of this information, I'm certainly going to already have basically and going to continue experimenting with different bolus doses of HCG at a time rather than 100 or 150 IU every day. Because in this paper, right, this is a long, exhaustive paper that Saya basically put down in the Excel Mail forum, Nelson Virgil's forum, for those of you TRT guys, where if you look at this graph right here, all right, what you're seeing is the serum HCG concentration. This is in men, the serum concentration of HCG at 8 hours, at 24 hours. You're looking at the left-hand column now, at 48 hours, and at 72 hours with a 150 IU injection or a 500 IU injection of HCG. Okay, so we're looking at over the course of a 3-day period, what is the measurement of serum HCG, the HCG in the blood, from either a microdose of HCG versus what is, I wouldn't even really consider it a bolus dose, it's just a larger dose of HCG. And what they found was really, really interesting in terms of serum concentrations and therefore steroidogenesis and the sexual benefits, the cessation benefits, the libido benefits, the erectile benefits. And there's so much on this, by the way. I recently found there's like LHCG receptors in male penile tissue, which is like mind blowing. Anyway, with 150 IU injection of HCG, okay, which a lot of people like to microdose, me included, right? I have microdosed HCG for a while. Keeps steroidogenesis good, keeps the sexual function, the sexual system largely good. Keeps spermatogenesis good as far as I can tell with smaller injections. So it's largely fine. However, at 8 hours, okay, you got one, I'm not sure this measurement, MIU/milliliter in the serum, with 150 IU injection of HCG. At 24 hours, guess how much HCG you have in your system? Just injecting 150 IU, whether sub-Q or intramuscular. Zero. You have zero HCG in the system at 24 hours. So if you inject HCG 150 IU in the morning at 7 a.m., by the next day at 7 a.m., you have zero HCG in your system, and you only had one MIU per milliliter at hour 8. So it peaked at hour 8, and then it was essentially had vanished from your system. No serum HCG can be detected after that point. If you look at the 500 IU injection, okay, you got 0 hour at hour 8. You've got 2 MIU per milliliter of HCG in the serum. But then that peaks. That peaks at hour 24. You've got 3 MIU per milliliter of HCG in the serum. Interestingly, at hour 48, with a 500 IU bolus injection, semi-bolus injection, you've got still 3 MIU per milliliter of HCG. And at hour 72, you're back down to 1. You're back down to 1. What is the significance of this study? Okay, the significance of this study is if you are intending to get not just the steroidogenesis, but the spermatogenesis, the 5-alpha reducing of testosterone to DHT intratesticularly, the upregulation of the whole intratesticular microenvironment, hormone microenvironment, you are quantifiably better off if you want just a high level of that system to be functional, the best possible bang for your buck. You are quite literally, quantifiably better off injecting more HCG at a time than small doses of HCG. Now, look, I've been dosing small doses of HCG for the majority of my time on TRT. I think the highest I went was, I've tried some boluses in the past. It just wasn't easy enough. Like, I just like kind of daily, every other day kind of thing. I've gone as high as 250 IU. Recently, I switched to 500 every other day. 500 every other day, 500 IU every day. That takes it to 750 or something a week. I'll probably aromatize slightly more. Not a big deal. There's many other things you can do to control aromatization. But interestingly, there are yet more benefits from boluses at once of HCG. Like all the things that basically microdosing a little bit, because I was doing it every day. So, you have 1 MIU per ml at hour 20, at hour 8, and then at hour 24, which is the next day, you really have nothing. So I was just injecting every day. I mean, I've been on every other day injections at 250, every day injections at 100, etc. And look, that did me pretty well. But the 500 IU injections every other day are actually more significant for me, okay? Load size bigger. I mean, we're talking about testicular size bigger, obviously more spermatogenesis, more steroidogenesis, better subjective feels, better subjective mood. So I respond very well to HCG. Some guys do not. They have immunogenic responses or it can give them brain fog or whatever. So long as you're conscious of controlling estradiol, right? And look, we've talked about a whole lot of really powerful stuff. Selenium via upregulating T4 to T3 conversion will inhibit aromatase at a significant enough level, which will prevent estradiol from being crazy. I mean, all the supplements that we know work pretty well. Calcium D-glucarate, you're metabolizing the estradiol out of the system faster. Diindomethane. I'm not a huge fan of diindomethane, frankly, but yes, you're going to convert some of your estradiol to one of the other estrogens and shuttle it out of the system, right? So there are many ways to counter what may be a marginal increase in estradiol. This also is influenced by what your TRT dose is, I mean, I'm at 126 right now. I went down to 70. I'll do the blood work on that here in a bit and on a video, but, back up to 126 is a good solid sweet spot. I don't aromatize a lot at that level. Not a lot at all. Without HCG, and my E2 would be at 20, too low, needs to be a little higher for that, for me. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys this because this is something that came on my radar recently, and it basically shows us in this paper that the higher the HCG dose that you're dosing at a time, the more serum HCG, which equals steroidogenesis, spermatogenesis, libido benefits, sensation, erection benefits, you're going to have in the serum at hour 8, at hour 24, at hour 48, you still have the same amount. And then it drops back down at hour 72. Okay? So you're essentially prolonging the half-life. You're keeping more HCG around. You're engaging the system more. For men that are on TRT, they can't get the sexual system straight. It's usually because you're shut down. Okay? This is why you have a honeymoon period where everything's great. Well, you're still functional. HPT hasn't shut down completely. After the honeymoon period, people start to lose some of the benefits, at least the androgenic benefits. You still have the anabolic benefits. That's always going to be the case with injectable TRT. But the androgenic benefits sometimes fall by the wayside because there's no intratesticular hormone environment that's functional. And a great way to do that is to actually bolus dose HCG or somewhat bolus instead of microdosing it. Okay. This is just a case for that. I'm not suggesting you do it, just kind of putting the data out there. Figure that would be interesting. If you want to read this, basically go and you can either read this study, serum beta HCG concentrations resulting from single HCG injection, or you could Google Excel Male, okay, just how it sounds, Excel Male, EXCEL Male.com. That's a forum, a TRT forum run by Nelson Virgil, who's a TRT guy. Dr. Saya HCG. Excel Mail Dr. Psy HCG. And go have a fucking read, boys. Good morning, everybody. All right, so let's make me back up to normal size here. Let me take the window capture out. Let's put the browser in and say what's up to the chat. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're ready for the spring. I know I am, boys. What's up, DJ Millen? Sooty Phoenix. What's good? Hope you're great. Luke John Russell says HCG gives me chronic anxiety even when controlling E2. You know, you probably want to look at whether or not it is stimulating thyroid hormone receptors. I believe HCG has the ability to do that. You know, it should not do that in a normal person. So it's probably making you temporarily hyperthyroid. That would be the only mechanism for that. Francisco, greetings from Argentina. Love it, brother. Hope you're good. Argentina is an interesting place because you guys make Malbec. And when I drank booze, which I don't anymore, I would be hard pressed to find a bad Malbec. And it all comes from Argentina. So props, brother. Props, brother. You guys know the deal. For 2 more days, Cortex Stack is buy one, get one free. 2 more days, all right? So that's the code cortexbogo. That will end Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So midnight Eastern time, basically. Last chance. Last chance. This is going back to regular price. No deals thereafter. All right, let's get the questions. If you got questions, those of you that just jumped in, post them. And let's talk about it. First question is from friend. Can't even fucking talk. Francisco. Could be dopamine. All right. No. Is that your question? Yeah. Could be dopamine. Could dopamine be the culprit for low libido? Porn gives me insane sex drive for 3 to 4 days, but then dies down. What would you take to gauge if dopamine is the issue? If porn is giving you sex drive? Well, I mean, yeah, it might be. I mean, it might just be firing hypothalamic dopamine in response to the visuals that you're seeing. And then you're sort of interested in it. I think there's a critical distinction to make is the difference between, erotically pleasing visual induced libido versus the visceral libido when you're around a woman that you're sexually attracted to. It is very different. You know, it's very different. It just, porn, as an example, is not engaging the entirety of the system, in my opinion. Whereas if you're around and next to a hot woman that strikes all your chords and her physicality, like how she looks and whatever you're into specifically, whether it's a big butt or whatever you're into, right? The response, the libido response is much different. Okay. Like, consuming erotic visuals for me and how I respond physically to that is much different than when I'm around a woman. So I think it's important to differentiate that. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that it's like then it dies down after 3 to 4 days. I think you might be overthinking that. I'm really not sure. I think you're having, erotic visual induced libido, and then that's going away. Now, yeah, look, that might make you overfire or regularly fire some hypothalamic dopamine. And, in which case there's your answer. If it dies down, it probably had just died down because you're not continuing to, consume porn. If you are and it dies down, then hard to say. There's a lot of speculation about this idea that porn is overfiring, dopamine and somehow depleting it. There is no mechanism by which that can happen. I know that's a big Reddit thing and people think that, and it's just like there's no mechanism by which that can happen. You cannot desensitize dopamine receptors from porn. Okay, you need excessive doses of fucking pramipexole or cabergoline, or a pharmaceutical like levodopa preparation for 3 years to desensitize dopamine receptors. Okay, so whatever the mechanism is, it is not dopamine. Hope that helps. Nick is saying, how scared are you of long-term effects of COVID nowadays? Scared, not really. Aware, fully. Yeah, I had long COVID. I had a series of symptoms ranging from elevated heart rate at rest to histamine intolerance, to mast cell disorder, to POTS, What else was happening? To essentially neuropathy-like symptoms after I had gotten COVID in 2021, and it lasted a long time. Thankfully, I don't just let things like that go and end up on the forums helpless like people do. I'm a biohacker, right? So I looked into what the problem was. COVID knocks out bifidobacteria species. Plain and simple. That's in the scientific literature. You will reduce significantly the quantity of bifido that you have from getting COVID, especially in these longer COVID syndromes. It's essentially the post-acute sequelae of COVID-19, otherwise known as long COVID. The reason this is important is because bifido are histamine-degrading gut species. If you're wiped out on histamine-degrading gut species, you will not tolerate histamine. And it's going to give you all manner of allergic reactions, which is a good degree of the symptomology in long COVID. There's more to it, right? But that's a huge part of it. If you're dealing with a condition post-COVID from COVID or from the you-know-what, you can't do anything that ignites an inflammatory response in your body. You just cannot. It means you can't drink, you should really be eating a Mediterranean diet. Yeah, you shouldn't smoke. You shouldn't do anything that is going to induce an inflammatory response. And you should do everything you can to aid in the inflammatory response, to lower inflammation. At the same time, we know the scientific literature is very clear on this. There's countless academic papers on COVID and dysregulation of the HPTA. So it's dysregulating your hypothalamus pituitary gonadal axis. It's probably dysregulating thyroid hormones. So in order to feel better, you've got to address the histamine thing, but at the same time, you have to look at every one of your hormones and start optimizing them. Then you're going to feel a lot better. So no, I'm generally not afraid of it. It happened, right? Wherever it originated, and I think we all fucking know it happened. And this is real. We're really living in that, where we were. You just got to understand how to deal with it. Walter, any reason phenylpiracetam, even at 200 milligrams, seems to give me a mild headache and nothing else? I'd want to look at the rest of your chemistry. Yeah, whatever your chemistry is, whether it's supplements you're taking, drugs you're taking or have taken, all manner of pharmaceuticals make longer-term changes to neurochemistry, receptor sites, receptor binding, these kinds of things. And so maybe you're ADHD, maybe you have an issue with dopamine transporters because phenylpiracetam is inhibiting them essentially. And so that's causing some weird response. I would wager it's more along the lines of what's happening with your brain rather than the compound itself. It's pretty straightforward in agonizing some cholinergic receptors, I believe, as well as inhibiting the reuptake of dopamine. That's what that compound does. Gaston is saying, hey, Ryan, have you ever helped anyone with fibromyalgia? Yes. If so, are there any supplements or stacks or peptides that you might recommend? Thank you for all your knowledge. It's a difficult one. I think that I'll tell you what I've seen. I've seen people with both CFS and fibromyalgia that have deficiencies in a variety of vitamins and a variety of hormones, thyroid hormones. I've seen people with fibromyalgia that are ferritin deficient. They're basically anemic and they don't know it, right? Because iron looks fine on the labs and ferritin's just a little bit below the reference range. So they didn't do anything about it. In that case, some lactoferrin over a month got the person nearly better. Acetyl L-carnitine tends to help with some of the neuropathy-like symptoms that fibromyalgia might induce. It's about looking at your entire system of health, every single hormone, whether they're in range or not, optimizing them, reducing inflammation. That is the biggest cause of all diseases that we have, inflammatory cascades that send these molecules to your brain and elsewhere, wreaking havoc, and doing everything you can to just maximize health. I've rarely seen it be some mitochondrial deficiency. I don't even know how you can quantify that. Some leftover virus, Epstein-Barr, etc. I've just not seen that. John Doe is saying, hey, Ryan, what do you think about oral TRT, natural testosterone and clomiphene from Maximus? Is it worth a try? Does it inhibit endogenous testosterone production? No, the Maximus stuff is basically Clomid, as far as I can tell. All that is going to do is block estrogen receptors in the pituitary and therefore tell that whole system to work better, meaning you'll release more luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. That's going to induce spermatogenesis, steroidogenesis in the testicles, and intratesticular testosterone production. The problem is that with Clomid and Clomid analogs, even the analogs that aren't supposed to be, that are supposed to not be detrimental to the ocular system. I don't know if it's estrogen receptor blocking. I actually haven't looked into the mechanism, but you have vision side effects from taking Clomid. I do not think Clomid is a good drug to take, maybe temporarily as a PCT. Otherwise, I would stay away from it. Yeah. And you know, the Maximus, whatever guys are never going to tell you that. Their whole spiel is, you know, they compare their product to TRT. Like, oh, TRT shuts you down and all this other stuff, but this doesn't. Like, oh, but what about the ocular side effects? What about, you know, significantly elevated estradiol, but with no receptor binding at certain places? You ever talk to people that are on Clomid? Go to the TRT forum or the testosterone forum. They're all going to say they feel like shit. And that's what happens. TRT, on the other hand, well, you can control all those things. You can lower your dose and thus lower estradiol. You can, you know, take a bunch of different other supplements and manage estradiol. You can optimize thyroid hormones and manage estradiol. And you're not inducing ocular side effects. And essentially, it's bioidentical. So no, TRT over Clomid any day of the week. Luke John Russell, follow-up statement about HCG giving me extreme anxiety. My thyroid always came back in range. Judging from people's opinion online, it seems like HCG is 50-50. No, definitely not. HCG is definitely not 50-50. You know, you'd have to see a lot of people to understand, you know, that whole picture. HCG can make people feel weird for a variety of reasons, and it's usually related to your health. Whether your thyroid numbers are in range or not, I don't care. I'd love to see them. Where are they exactly? Because they could be on the low end of the reference range, they can be on the high end of the reference range. Either or might signify a problem, or it could be subclinical in some regard. Or you're having an immunogenic response. You know, that is possible with HCG too. You know, HCG from a mother to their baby modifies the baby's immune system. Like very, very, like not marginally. It's like a big part of the development of the baby's immune system. So, you know, again, it comes back to you, not the compound. Thomas Oliver, suggestions on anxiety that is way worse upon waking up for 40 minutes. Cortisol sent ivory so high, and it doesn't fix the HPA axis. Gotta look at bloods, because you might be wrong about the cortisol. You know, look at your cortisol at 8 a.m. Look at your 8 a.m. cortisol. Is it going higher than range? Is it going higher than it should? You know, if it isn't, that's not your problem. It's not your issue. I mean, there's so many things that I think the general public is unaware about regarding neurotransmitters and anxiety. As an example, if you don't have adequate B vitamins, just adequate B vitamins, and the best way you can really do that is supplements these days. You're not going to get it in your diet. I just don't believe that. If you don't have adequate levels of B vitamins, you will not break down catecholamines. Okay, so adrenaline and noradrenaline are going to stay active in your brain longer. You won't break them down. Whereas if you have enough B vitamins, you're going to break them down adequately. So that could be your problem, right? There's so many things that could trigger anxiety in the morning. I don't know what your history is. When you guys ask these questions, give me your history. Give me your history, because you're definitely leaving stuff out. Is high E2 dangerous long-term, Nick says. Yes, I believe it is. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the academic literature on this, it's all very clear. Number one, high levels of estrogen, consistent high levels of estrogen are have the ability to overstimulate a bunch of cells in your pituitary that produce prolactin. They're called lactotropes. The lactotropes actually respond directly to E2. It's the D2 receptors, the dopamine receptors on the lactotropes that does this. Excessive levels continuously of estradiol, well, you run the risk of pituitary adenoma formation. You could actually induce, by feeding rats, high levels of estradiol. I don't know if it's 17 beta. I think it's one of the other derivatives that they give as drugs. Effectively the same thing. You can induce pituitary tumors in rats, prolactinomas, by giving them high levels of estradiol. All right. So not that it's like that's just one thing. Estrogen changes your set point for vasopressin. Okay. Otherwise known as arginine vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone. The higher the estrogen, the higher the ADH is going to be, which means you're going to retain fluid, which is not good for your cardiovascular system past a certain degree. So there's another negative. Same thing is true with low estrogen. This is why guys piss endlessly when their estradiol gets too low, because you've lowered the set point for ADH, and now your posterior pituitary cannot release adequate quantities of antidiuretic hormone. So your water goes in and right out. So, look, it's bad on both sides. Long-term, high estradiol and low estradiol is unhealthy, period. Long-term. I don't care what Dave Lee says or Danny Bossa says or any of these fucking non-scientific guys. I actually like Dave Lee. He's actually a super smart guy, but he tends to say leave estrogen alone kind of thing. I think he's maybe wising up. No, you don't leave estrogen alone. You dial your protocol in a way which gets estradiol in the right place, hopefully, and you supplement with other things and make sure thyroid hormones are good and don't drink alcohol. And then you shouldn't aromatize a whole lot. You get healthy, you lose body fat, all that kind of stuff. But yes, high E2. I mean, you're going to get gyno from it past a certain range. That's the 70, 80 picograms per milliliter. It tends to be different for different people. And it's not prolactin, by the way, that causes gyno. Andrew Huberman was wrong. And low E2 is going to make you feel like garbage, so you got to have it in the middle. If I could suggest a number, it'd be 30 picograms per milliliter is pretty good. But then again, if you're on super physiologic doses of androgens, like you're just taking it far too high, you might need to push 45, 50, and you'll feel fine. It's just it's somewhat about the ratio as you go higher on androgens. Zayed Davids is saying, hey, what supplement would you recommend to improve learning and memory? Off the top of my head, Hydra 21. Start taking that and see how you fare. Jeff, what's up, homie? Are you still taking the thyroid supplement? If so, do you still have the same reaction? Yes. Yeah. I mean, these days, again, when I took it, I had 48 hours of energy. It was probably a little higher of a dose than I should take. I don't need thyroid hormone optimization because my free T3 is 3.7 on a scale of I think it's 2.4 to 4.1, something to this effect. TSH is great. Free T4 is great. I don't have elevated RT3, RT4. No thyroid antibodies. So my thyroid hormone's in a great place. It's really just an energy supplement. So I'll take it at the dose that I know won't give me side effects for extra energy ongoingly, but it's not on a schedule. So I hope that answers your question. Zayed, is modafinil safe to take 4 times a week at 100 milligrams? Yes, 100%. I work night shift 4x a week, wondering if taking it 4 times weekly is too much for the brain. No, I don't think so. No, I mean, modafinil is one of the most well-studied nootropic chemicals there is, and safest. That doesn't mean that there aren't side effects. There can be histamine reactions. There can be somewhat mild depletion temporarily of dopamine stores. I mean, if your tyrosine hydroxylase and dopa decarboxylase, these conversion enzymes that take your L-dopa and convert them to usable dopamine, are adequate, then that really shouldn't happen. Excessive dosing of aphenols, etc., may induce dyskinesias, these basically spasms of your muscles in your face. That's in line with kind of dopaminergic tremor. So you don't want to dose 300 milligrams 7 days a week, but 100 milligrams 4 days a week is absolutely fine. The stuff is studied, well tolerated, studied for many, many years, and pretty effective. Danny Bills, what nootropics was Hitler on? How do you have short skills? Dude, I actually think, I don't know if I'm making this up, but maybe I read this somewhere that he was using methamphetamines, which would make sense. Konzig gang? If a nootropic helps with neurogenesis, will it also help with neuroplasticity? Generally, yes. It should. Yes, it should. Alhandra? For social anxiety, what's your thought on using beta blocker plus GABAergic while slowly teaching yourself to associate calmness with social events? I think that the anchor trigger thing you're saying in the latter part of your question is pretty good. A pretty good strategy to do that. The root cause, if it isn't a neurological disorder or just a neurotransmitter imbalance, which you could fix with a GABAergic, we wouldn't take the beta blocker for that. Of social anxiety is a lack of confidence in who you are, number one. Because in life, you're not about anything. You're just not doing anything significant. How could you have confidence if you're just a normal Joe? How could you have significant levels of confidence if you're not doing anything significant in life and you haven't done things significant in life? At 19, I was in boot camp. At 23, I was fighting in fucking Iraq. After that, I started companies. Didn't have a job. Haven't had a job for 17 years or so. That's why I'm confident. What have you done? Right? What have you done with your life? So that's one thing. Secondly, if you're around people in social context who are not like you and who have their weird clique-like psychological shit going on, then that's going to, reduce your social anxiety. If there are, in my friend circle, if I have one, or if I'm meeting people that are acquaintances or whatever, and they could develop as friends, if I notice any of that weird shit, I'm out. Any weird stuff with anybody, that indicates some sort of instability in their psychology, I'm out. So in social situations, you got to avoid people like that because they're going to make you socially anxious. I'll get socially anxious around weird people that you can tell they're judging and thinking, and they're just focusing on the wrong thing. I'm so much more confident, as an example, around other entrepreneurs that are killing it in life, right? Why? Why would that be, right? Because they're like me. They don't have bad energy. They want to prop you up, So be around the right people and you'll have a lot less anxiety. Be around people that are like you, that just like the things you like, and you'll have a lot less anxiety. Testosterone, get it above 800 nanograms per deciliter. I mean, for some people, 600 is fine. Depends on the person and their what their body's used to, androgen receptor binding wise. But you get testosterone high, that changes neurotransmitters first of all. But this is the hormone that makes you a man. It is truly the differentiating hormone of the sexes. So having high testosterone will absolutely change your propensity to be anxious in social contexts. Camden is saying, hey, do you know anything about the possible efficacy of low dose tadalafil on an overactive bladder? No, I don't. How would that affect? I mean, it'd be modifying prostate tissue at some level, right? Because it's used to treat BPH or benign prostate hyperplasia. And so potentially that could have an effect, on regulating prostate function, which could regulate, urine output at some capacity. You have to remember that the urinary system is not just about the bladder. That's a holding space. And, that's essentially it. I mean, you have receptors in there that determine a few things, but your kidneys, antidiuretic hormone receptors in your kidneys, among other receptors in your kidneys, they dictate how much water you retain, So if you have an overactive bladder, you might want to look at whether or not you have low estrogen, which will reduce antidiuretic hormone to make you pee a lot. There are hormones that largely control that. It's not just bladder specific. I think people just need to look out of the bladder and into other things. Senex says, good morning, fellow meatheads. What's up, bro? What's up? Current stack, supplement and newts. It's actually pretty simple right now. 3K IU vitamin D in the morning. B is a B complex, which is a mineral complex as well, by 1 a day. So men's 1 a day multivitamin, multi-mineral. On and off 400 milligrams Alcar. That's every other day, every third day. I just love the energy from Alcar in the morning. Right now, 200 micrograms selenium in the morning. Running 250 milligrams a day of lactoferrin. Okay, lactoferrin will elevate serum ferritin levels. It basically will help iron storage. Interestingly, that shit has been very instrumental in giving me more energy. I run mastic gum at nighttime, just as a maintenance, because I had H. pylori in the past. And again, every third day or so, I'm dosing desiccated bovine thyroid supplements. A very, very small amount every third day. Every fourth day, every third day, kind of depends on how much the previous dose carries over. Is there anything else in my regimen at the moment? No, there's nothing else in my regimen at the moment. In the morning, however, I'm doing daily injections of shallow intramuscular testosterone, and every other day injections, now bolus dosing at once because of that study to see of HCG. And that is it. I've got some BPC 157 also that I'm using for a shoulder injury, but that's not in the morning. Are nootropics harden the liver? No. Well, it depends on the compound. I think if you excessively dose, you couldn't even really say adrafinil because there's no data behind that. That's just something that people made up on the web. I think if you have a suboptimal like detox pathway system and you're dosing, I don't know, a lot of armodafinil or something, then, and you drink a lot, then that might put a strain on your liver. Yeah. Generally, everything that you put in every compound that you're put into your system is going to have to be cleared out, right? It's going to have to be phased out of your body. That happens via that organ, right? You just have to know not to stress it too much, and don't consume alcohol. But no, otherwise, no, they're not. There's actually studies on this, like aniracetam, oxiracetam, zero degree of toxicity to organs. There are studies on that. So the general answer is no. Zarfed, I'm glad you heard of lactoferrin. I bought low 50 milligram dose. How do you like it? Does it feel feeling or not? I think that, look, if you have low ferritin or if you have some sort of iron storage problem, then lactoferrin is going to make you feel like a new person. My ferritin was not low below the reference range, but it was on the low end of the reference range. So I'm always trying to optimize that. That's also the precursor to being on the low end of the reference range. That's usually induced by TRT. So do I notice a significant difference of it? Maybe a tad bit more energy. Tad bit, nothing crazy, but really was a preventative thing. Josh is saying thoughts on fasting. I think it, look, for a variety of reasons, like just in certain cases, it can be very useful. One, if you went excess in calories, like because you went to an outing or a family thing or whatever, right? You just ate too many calories. Then fasting for even 16 hours, you don't even have to do a whole day, 16 hours, you're going to see a reduction in belly fat. You're going to see, some bloat go away. Your digestive system is going to get a rest. You're going to feel a little better. If you've treated your body like shit, in addition to eating, like drinking or whatever, drugs, anything, for some period, fasting is a great way to induce autophagy, where you've got like cellular restoration, cellular recycling. You might enhance gut motility as a result of just not eating because the digestive system gets a break. There's a variety of different, acute situations in which fasting might be useful. I don't, me personally, I don't make a habit of fasting. I'll fast if I've gone excess in calories, or if I feel like there's a reason to, maybe want to give my digestion a break because I ate something terrible for 2 days and it started slowing my gut motility. Then I'll fast to get it back to normal or whatever, but it's usually not very long. I did, a lot of 16/8 windows back in the day. And, though there's an adjustment period and you can get over that, and I just generally didn't end up, like on the end point, feeling as optimal as 3 meals a day, with a snack in between or whatever. That's kind of it. And by the way, that doesn't mean that I have like deranged insulin or deranged glucose, it's perfectly normal. Phantom methylfolate. Yeah, I think some people have a difficult time methylating regular folate, and so methylfolate could be useful for those. Lori Susan, hey, Ryan, I take Subroxy daily, 5 days per week. Can I? I think you can get away with it. Just pay attention to if you have any kind of like dopamine deficiency symptoms after a while, because, you're blocking the transporters mildly. So that means you're just like preventing dopamine from clearing the brain. And as a result, you might run out of dopamine. Not completely, but you might have some temporary deficiency. And if you're having motivation issues or libido problems, or you're just generally fatigued or your memory is bad, that's another dopaminergic deficiency issue. Then maybe you look into backing off or taking some Mucuna with it. Nicholas says, asking, hey, is glycine safe for long-term use? Can cause withdrawal? Is it similar to GABA? It's not similar to GABA. The only similarity glycine and GABA have is that they're inhibitory neurotransmitters. So they stop the impulses of other neurotransmitters firing, at excessive levels, like the excitatory ones, glutamate, acetylcholine, dopamine probably to an extent, in the right cases, at the right times. They should be selectively inhibitory to chill you out. I don't think that glycine is bad to take long-term. No, I don't think so. Iron supplements can have deleterious effects on your health. That's why. Yeah. If you need iron because you're very deficient, go get iron infusions. That's what I would suggest over taking iron. But the gastrointestinal side effects of iron supplements are orders of magnitude bigger than you would think. Go read about it. Just I wouldn't take iron supplements unless I had severely low iron itself, not just ferritin or some sort of weird iron saturation number. If I had extremely low iron, I was actually anemic, I'd get iron infusions first. That's what I would do. Josh says, I thought cerebral lysin was cow brains a couple years ago. Was it always pig brains? Or they switched it over? Pretty sure it was always pig brains. Always from the brain of a pig, man. We've been talking about a lot of stuff that you take that is from the organs of pigs or cows, like the desiccated thyroid stuff that I've been talking about. This is a good question here by Senek. How much does HCG degrade by accidentally leaving it out for a day? Difficult to say. What I would wager is that, like, you know, look, this is just, it's all opinions at this point, or estimations with HCG, because you have no way to quantify this, but like UGL HCG, or even proper pharmaceutical HCG, but that you get through some sort of UGL company, like you get, what's that stuff called? Xy HCG. Usually comes from India or whatever. That stuff does not last as long as Pregnal. So, like, and Pregnal's pharmaceutical grade, you know, I think Pfizer makes it, or Merck or something. Pharmaceutical grade human chorionic gonadotropin. That stuff lasts 40 to 50 days. It really depends, you know, depends on how cold your refrigerator is, how long you leave it out after you inject. You got to get it right in the fridge after you inject and keep it cold, really cold. That's the best way to preserve it. Whereas, like, you know, some of the UGL HCGs, I've had Xy HCG that after 30 days or something, it's very noticeably less potent, you know, meaning testicles start to shrink, right? And sex drive tends to lower. And estradiol might lower as well. So, you know, there's a way to actually quantify that somewhat just by estimating. Leaving it out for a day, it may have taken a day or two off of your total time. So if you have UGL HCG, you know, instead of it being 30 days or so, it's probably at 27, you know, or if you had 15 days left, it's at 13. If you had Pregnal, not a huge deal. That stuff is very stable, very stable. So who knows, but you know, it may reduce, it may have denatured it, the proteins for, you know, like in a way which makes it like 1 to 2 days worse, you know, so nothing significant. There's a lot of compounds for which, like, you got to keep them refrigerated, but if you don't for a brief period because you have to travel or whatever, they're largely going to be fine. You just might lose a little bit of potency. Yeah, I just recently switched back to Pregnal, for those of you interested. It just is more potent and lasts longer, ultimately, you know. It doesn't degrade as much compared to Xy HCG, which I was using for a while because it was cheaper. Pregnal is very expensive. It's just pain in the butt. Pain in the butt. Makes a brother want to go and take some Kispeptin, you know, or Gonadorelin, which you have to dose frequently and a lot of. Opinions on turkesterone. I don't have any on it. I forget exactly what it is. In fact, you know, any supplements I'm just, besides Fedosia, I'm not really interested in relative to test, unless it's a combination of 20 very targeted things. I think this compound does have some, at least it has a good degree of web presence or web discussion, and probably some good anecdotals and stuff. So I'm not negating that it can raise testosterone or have an effect there. Zarfed, if you don't have Lacuna for dopamine deficiency, can I use tyrosine? Yeah, you can. Yeah, tyrosine is more likely to convert to other stimulants too in your brain, stimulant fight or flight hormones or catecholamines over Mucuna. Mucuna will do that too, but not to the extent that tyrosine will. So, you know, if you don't get anxious easily, if you don't have like anxiety response that's significant from things like just at baseline, then tyrosine will be fine. If you do, be careful with tyrosine because it can give you full-blown panic attacks if you're not careful. Brother Josh, best anxiolytic long-lasting nootropic. Profound after 2 months cycle. Yeah, C-Max, C-Lank, interesting. I think, C-Lank is more of an anxiolytic than C-Max. I'd be using Picamillin if I were you. Picamillin or high-dose theanine are honestly the simplest and most effective, like, anxiolytic compounds. Good morning, Donald Pump. What's up, brother? I love that name, dude. It should be Big Don, like with muscles. At the gym with a barbell. Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Nicholas, by the way, thanks for the serotonin video, man. Found a yogurt with Bifido Infantis. Sweet. Longum, so Saccharomyces thermophilus, I believe that is. Definitely feeling calmer after one day. Love it. It's very cut and dry. You know, those organisms help you build serotonin. They do. And it's a beautiful thing to get enough of them, especially when you're deficient in it. It's a 9-day difference if you've identified serotonin deficiency or mild serotonin deficiency is the reason you feel terrible or feel not happy, and then you change it by modifying your diet or getting some probiotics in, then you're building more serotonin from the guts perspective. You feel like a different person, man. You feel like a different person. Brother. All right, boys. Any more questions? If you guys got questions, ask them. I seem to have lost my cursor. I've lost my cursor and I can't find it. Cortex stack. Buy one, get one free right now. All right, for 2 more days. This ends 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday. So that's tomorrow. That's going to end tomorrow night, basically midnight Eastern time. Code for that is on the screen. cortexbogo. Code is also in the description to get buy one, get one free Cortex. There's no catch. You'll get a bottle free per what you buy. We only run those twice a year, boys. Twice a year. I'm just about booked. I mean, I've got some slots open, but I'm maybe 3/4 booked on 3-month and 6-month one-on-one consultations, like just ongoing work with me, where we dive into everything and optimize the hell out of everything. So if any of you are watching that are thinking of booking those, please book so that you can book before the people who are going to book and take all my slots take my slots. Josh, any recommended resources to start understanding neurotransmitters? I mean, basic neuroscience book would help you. I mean, there's some user-friendly books like The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge, which I would suggest reading, which will give you a breakdown of neurotransmitters in somewhat of a layman's way. Otherwise, Google. I mean, the world's information, including what it takes to get a PhD, is now on Google. So, Google each neurotransmitter, what it does, what the precursors are, the series of receptors it has, the actions that those receptors have, how your brain clears those neurotransmitters, how your brain recycles those neurotransmitters. Like on the choline side, choline esterase; on the dopamine side, the dopamine transporters. Understand what the neurotransmitter transporters do, the SERT and the DAT. Understand what they do and how they're clearing transmitters from the system. Maybe look into things like VMAT and other clearance mechanisms of neurotransmitters, and go from there. Do that with each neurotransmitter, and then you got to get into the literature of how these neurotransmitters interact. You know, like when you give yourself super physiologic levels of serotonin, and how that interacts with dopamine, basically lowers it, messes with it, and the same can be said for super physiologic levels of dopamine. It modifies serotonin in a way. Then you got to look at the neurotransmitters and their interaction with hormone systems, because they interact with hormone systems too. Serotonin is prolactogenic, as an example. Dopamine is anti-prolactogenic, as an example. So there's just a lot, but that would be a good breakdown that I would start in. All of those things right there. So yeah, like I said in the beginning, boys, let me see if I can, if it's possible for me to get that back up again. I think that it is critically important for those of you that are on HCG while you're on TRT to just go have a gander at this. All right. Just have a gander at this mail Excel. It's an Excel mail thread. Okay. By Dr. Justin Saya, who, points out a study which shows us a table of, these microdoses of HCG, which again can be effective if you're doing it every day. I mean, you have 1 MIU per milliliter in your system at 8 hours. You probably have 0.5 or something at 20 hours. And then at 24, you have 0 though. Right. So optimizing steroidogenesis, spermatogenesis, enhancing 5-alpha reduction of test to DHT in the testicles, keeping the internal testicular environment, the hormone environment, that microenvironment, which is so critical for neurosteroids, among other things, lively. You might want to consider bolus doses of HCG, considering at 8 hours here, you've got 2 MIU per ml. At 24, you've got 3. At 48, with a 500 IU injection, you got 3 still. Then at 72 hours, you're back down to 1. Whereas you've only literally got what is ultimately the trough of the 500 IU injection, 100 MIU or 1 MIU per ml on, hour 8. If you're doing these small injections of HCG. I recently switched, so I don't really have anecdotal enough to tell you. The sexual system seems enhanced from more HCG. I'll have to look at serum estradiol after about 6 weeks or so running this, but I feel great. I feel great on more HCG at a time. Ultimately more per week, but mostly more at a time. Just something to look at for those of you that, want to understand maybe the sexual system isn't where it's supposed to be on TRT. A big part of why that happens, if it isn't estradiol problems or thyroid hormone problems or nitric oxide issues, is being shut down. Okay. As Leo said in that, video that I posted where he was advising Ryan Russo. Okay. Leo doesn't say things without backing them up. He doesn't just say stuff. Leo was always very clear about this. There's no hormone replacement therapy just on TRT. You got to replace those hormones in the testicles. And the best way to do that is gonadotropins. All right, boys, I'm going to end the stream. I hope that's been useful. You can find this at excelmail.com, searching for HCG Dr. Saya, S-A-Y-A. Please go read it, because I think, it might change a lot of people's minds, and it may actually really help a lot of people on TRT that aren't getting the sexual benefits as much, or just need load size, testicular volume, all that kind of stuff better. So go please check that out. Cortex stack again, buy one, get one free. 2 more days. Okay. Really 1.5 days or something. It's ending tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So look forward to that, or go get it. Okay. No catch. It's just a free bottle per what you buy. Enter that code, that we won't run for another 6 months or maybe longer. Okay. Great questions, guys. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you're ready for the spring. I'm so ready for it. We're getting teased. We get some good weather and then it's shitty again. The good weather until it's like late April, early May, we're riding off in the sunset, and we got a whole season, boys, where we can walk outside, where we can do things, where we can get vitamin D from the sun, where we can enjoy life, where it's lighter outside later, and dark in the morning when it's supposed to be. I like dark 30. I just like it a lot. Love you guys. Great questions. Talk to you on the next one.